Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for 7 foundational workflows for high growth businesses presented by Front and our partner PieSync. Thank you so much for joining us today. So to get things started, just want to introduce our speakers. We have Steve Hackney, Head of Solutions Engineering here at Front, Frans Leys, Solutions Engineer at PieSync, and myself, Vishal. I do demand gen here also up front. As we wait for people to come in, I wanted to start with a quick and fun little icebreaker. This is one of my favorite questions to ask, and it is, what is the most recent show you've been binge watching? Steve, do you want to kick us off and let us know?
Yes, I am mildly embarrassed to admit that the show I've been watching most recently is the Great British Baking Challenge. So I'm through several seasons, and I don't typically love the competitive baking shows. However, something about this show is quite endearing, and I also learned a little bit about baking. At home, I like to cook. My wife is a baker, but I don't like to measure things. Uh, all the measuring happening at work at Front as a solutions engineer, and so at home I use cooking as more of a creative release. But I do really love the show, and highly encourage anybody that hasn't seen it to watch a full season, and you'll be hooked.
Yeah, that's funny. This is like the main question I ask every time we do a webinar, and I feel like that show always comes up. I I got to check it out. But that's great. Franz, what about you?
I just finished Ricky Gervais's new baby, which is the show called Afterlife. It's just I think it's 5 or 6 episodes, but it's really good. It's on Netflix, and I'm catching up with the last 3 seasons of Family Guy, which are now also upon Netflix. It's a show I really like just having it on, even on the background. Gives me a good chuckle.
Yeah, that's a great classic show. Uh,
What about
so
you, Vishal?
yeah, so for me, it's actually going. Season 4 just started, and I binge watched the first 3 seasons, and now it's in real time, and it's weird watching a show in real time and having to wait a week for the next episode. I feel like we're not used to those days anymore. But I really like that show. I don't know. I actually don't know how far they can take it now. But it's really great acting, Paul Giamatti, and so that's basically been on my Netflix, or actually that's a Showtime show recently. Cool. So thank you guys. Now let's get into it. I wanted to review how today's session will work. So as you have questions, add them to the chat. There will be plenty of time for Q&A at the end, and we'll receive a recording of this webinar as well. So for those of you attending, we'll shoot out a recording and a summary. And as questions come up, feel free to just start asking them. We'll compile them, and then at the last bit of this webinar, we'll ask Steve and Franz what they think. And quick agenda, so introduction, which is what we've been doing now. I'm going to give a little overview of PieSync in Front in just a second, and then we'll go right into the 7 foundational workflows while everyone's here, and Steve and Franz have some really great tips for everyone. And then, like I said, the Q&A at the end. So starting off with Front, Steve, can you tell us what is Front for those of us who don't know?
Right, so you can read there. Front is a email client that helps teams collaborate and accomplish more together. It's a little bit more than email. We also have technology built into Front that you can use to build workflow and integrate your email client into things like your CRM, and also bring in other formats of messages beyond email, including SMS and Facebook, Twitter. And so anytime that you are managing email in a team setting, we think Front is the solution to use.
Nice. PieSync. Frans, can you let us know what PieSync is?
At PieSync, we provide and build a synchronization platform. We've been doing that for, well, since 2012 already. A synchronization platform to interlink different contacts or customer databases that you hold in, say, your phone, your CRM, your email client, which could be Front, to get an intelligent two-way sync, bidirectional. So in essence, by doing so, you create one single contact address book in the cloud, and PieSync merges the existing data. So, and it also comes with rules that you can structure the data flowing in your software stack from one app to the other. That's PieSync.
Super cool. And Front and PieSync are integration partners as well.
Yeah. So indeed, you can, if you have customers writing into Front, that customer database, well, you construct that database, it gets built out over time. You can connect that to a CRM so that in Front you see CRM's information and vice versa. I'll actually make sure to show some examples later on in the webinar on that.
Cool, thanks. All right, so let's get started. What we're all here for is 7 foundational workflows for high growth businesses. Steve and Frans are gonna share with us each of these. And like I said, feel free to jump in with questions and we'll have time to go through those. So number 1, the ideal morning routine. So I forgot to shave this morning, but I don't think I hit the ideal morning routine. But is this exactly what you're talking about, Frans? Can you let us know what you mean by this?
Yeah, there's a couple of types of morning routines. There, you've got the personal one, like what do you do? What do you plan on doing today yourself? Where do you start? But there's also a shared morning routine, something that you would, do as a team. How do you prioritize the morning's, work at hand, the backlog? And also, when I talk about morning routine, it's not about meditation or timing your first cup of coffee at the right time between 8 and 9 a.m. to maximize caffeine input. That exists, by the way. This is about business. So in a personal morning routine in a high growth company, there's lots to do, and you simply cannot do it all in one day. You get new things piling up, and it's impossible to memorize everything that needs to happen. And one thing that's never worked for me is to-do list apps. And apps like Evernote, Todoist, there's Wunderlist, there's Google Keep. I've tried all of them, I think, and I've never managed to get one to-do app to stick around for a long enough time to really make me feel comfortable with it, more productive. And I'm actually hearing similar stories all around me. Some apps try too hard to push you in a certain workflow. There's an app called Workflowy that does too hard, didn't work. And then there's other apps like Wunderlist that really are just a list with items to check. They don't work for me either. By the way, if the audience can share their favorite to-do app that does work for them in the chat box, please do. I do have a to-do list, and you can see it right there on the slide. It's just a plain text field. That's what I've been sticking with for the last couple of months, and that's been working for me. What does that text file look like for me? Well, on top, I pin 3 priorities. They're always there, need to be worked on. It's 3 slots, larger projects, and then underneath at the very bottom, it's like my full list of to-dos. And each morning, and this is my morning routine, I'd say to myself, which of these to-dos will have the most impact on moving the business forward? And I choose those and I point them for today. But the greatest challenge in finishing this to-do list lies in the fact that emails come in all the time. And worse, since I'm in Belgium, I wake up to a full inbox of emails from Vishal and Steve, which are on Pacific time zone, that came in overnight. So working on emails in this to-do list, it's not written there, but it should be really a tactical activity in itself. And I carve out a certain amount of time for it in the day. You got to take that distance from email because not every email is created equal. That's handling emails in your personal morning routine. When you work in a team and you share customer-facing inbox with many emails coming in, yeah, you got to follow some different logics. And I'm sure, Steve, you got to have some good practice ideas on how to go through a morning backlog of emails front.
Yeah, great tips there, Franz. I share your sentiment. I use a sticky note, a little bit lower tech, but I try never to leave the office until I check off the 3 things I write on my sticky note.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a good way to prioritize. Often throughout the day, you're having to choose between kind of prioritizing tasks. And one thing that I've always done, and I know is a very core tenet of Front's approach, is to prioritize the interactions that impact customers first. And as a fast growing business and a business that's really customer centric, it's critical that we preserve good relationships and that we often make hard decisions that deprioritize things that aren't customer centric. And so I think one extra way to think about the priorities as you're laying them out in the morning are what are going to be the things that make the most impact on your customers. And as a growing business, your loyal customer base is your most valuable asset. And a lot of Front success and PieSync success, I think, are tied to the fact that we enable customers to, we enable people to really know their customers and interact with them in a positive way. So we'll talk a little bit more about that later.
Right.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. Friends, I have the exact same to-do list actually. I've tried every single app and I find that sort of a basic list works the best for me, but I am also curious from our attendees what they are using it if they have any better suggestions. All right, so let's move on to the next one. Putting an end to shoulder tapping. I personally really hate this, especially when you're in the zone. Frans, can you tell us what you mean more by this?
Yeah, if shoulder tapping is a new concept to you, just basically think about Slack. Or maybe you're using Microsoft Teams, their version of Slack. There is something I like to call the Slack paradox, which is that Slack, for being marketed as a productivity tool, they're actually making it really easy to set it up in a way that it harms your productivity. Slack's an example. There's a screenshot right there out of our own Slack. Now, Slack's supposed to be the better alternative for internal company email or communication because email is push and Slack allows for a better pull, which is true. The channels, you can see them right there. Slack organizes conversation in channels, and that allows employees to choose pull, which content they consume, rather than being CC'd on every single email in the company. But it's a paradox because a lot of colleagues, even here in our own office, they end up joining every single channel, making Slack just as overwhelming as a regular email. And the shoulder tapping is about that default notification sound of Slack. It's literally, it sounds like a shoulder tap. I can't emulate it, but it's a tack, tack, tack. It's not good for productivity. You get interrupted, so you got to turn it off. You got to down tune those notifications so that you're alerted only for what's strictly necessary. And I've actually taken the extreme measure of turning off all notifications in Slack. It's a recommendation that I can only give to you too as well. Because in the same way that you carve out time to handle email, I start carving out time to handle my Slack. And that doesn't make me less of a helpful colleague. I can still get through all of my messages. But yeah, you got to tweak Slack, right? So it becomes a pull rather than a push. I choose when to read and reply messages on my own time. But more so for communication, we actually like Slack. We rely on Slack to drive a lot of workflows in our business at PieSync. Our CEO likes to use the phrase that Slack for us becomes the middleware of workflows, which is a phrase I really like. I'm referring here to integrations that you can plug into Slack, and you can see an example right there. The screenshot's an example of a review that gets posted on PieSync. Coincidentally, it's a very positive review. And that kind of message, as soon as it gets posted out there on a review website, it gets pushed into Slack so that we can see it. We also have webhooks pushing messages to us privately, but this is an example of a public one. The key is to not overdo this. If you overdo setting up all kinds of webhooks and all kinds of automations, it's just information overload again, breaks your workflow, and you get people turning against Slack and not using it anymore, which is also something that we've seen. So you got to, again, tune that down as well. So only send in webhooks when it requires a workflow to follow. So like mandatory FYIs or a workflow that needs to follow out of it. Why am I calling this a workflow? Well, there's like these two little emojis underneath it. Not only like a heart emoji to just show that we like this review, but the green check mark is important for us as a company because we cross-post that review on our website. And that's a process which is completely manual. We cannot automate it for the life of us. It's a manual task, but at least that little check mark allows my colleagues to see, okay, Frans already has done this task, so we don't need to look at it anymore. So we essentially make sure that every review that gets posted gets that green check mark. Why am I mentioning this? Because it's a super natural way of collaborating, and it's a super lightweight to set up as well, and that's important if you want to grow fast. Now, this is how we do it at PieSync. How do you guys minimize shoulder tapping at front, Steve?
Yeah, well, it's great. It's a great segue because what you described as push and pull,
Yeah.
I also refer to at front as the difference between expectations of synchronous communication or asynchronous communication.
Mhm.
And unless you're actively coaching people against or implementing Slack as PieSync has against that tendency, the perception is that every message you get in Slack has to be addressed right away. It's the most important thing. And as we mentioned in the previous slide, that prioritization is such a critical aspect of getting the right things done, not just doing a lot of things. And so at Front, we use Slack. We understand that Slack is a really great communication tool in the case that you need people to interact in a very quick or lightweight fashion, but that the vast majority of things that you would otherwise put into Slack, we encourage people to send an email and use Front so that you can allow the person you're working with to prioritize the response to the message asynchronously.
Mhm.
In doing so, you really give the person the time and the space to define the interaction and cadence according to what makes sense to them and their work schedule and their prioritization. And as a whole, the company has a better culture. We have more respect for each other, and I feel like we're a lot more productive. And so, just kind of segueing from that to the other point that you made about eliminating needless email, I totally identify with this one as well, because at Front we do see that a good number of emails that you get are just blanket notifications that go out to the entire company, but maybe aren't necessary to read right away. You can just keep them in the background. So give me your thoughts about that, Frans, if you can expand on that
Yeah,
point.
I did something extreme, which I'm now evangelizing to the rest of my colleagues. They're still sometimes sending me an email or CCing me on emails, but I've set up a rule inside Gmail, which as soon as I'm in the to or in CC and it comes from a colleague, that email skips my inbox and it gets pushed into Slack instead. So I only have one channel to look at my colleagues' emails. It's a simple rule I set up. You can do it in Gmail or in Outlook, and I get literally 30% less emails. I could just resolve those conversations in one single environment, which in my case would be Slack. That's just my preference.
Mm-hmm. And at Front, our technology is really good at minimizing the amount of emails that are derived from distribution lists.
Yeah.
So distribution lists, if you're a part of them, you know that every time an email goes to the distribution list, it goes to everybody on that list. And for a good percentage of those emails, it shouldn't go to everyone. It should just go to someone on that list as the responsible party. So we see a massive reduction in the amount of email just by moving those things from a distribution list to an inbox that kind of catalogs the historical messages and allows people to access them when they need to, but not have to read every single email that goes to that list.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like, yeah, don't join every channel in Slack if you don't have to.
Yeah, definitely. I think Steve's point, the shared inboxes has definitely been a huge kind of advantage for us, being able to have that up front. It's funny because I never thought I would be able to be an inbox zero person on a consistent basis. But I think these hacks really get you there, and it makes things a lot simpler. And like Steve said, you have that history, you still have that information there when you need it, but it doesn't have to clutter your day to day. Great. So I think this brings us into our next point, which is making sure your contacts are where you are. So I think we're talking uh, about basically eliminating the clutter, getting rid of the information that you don't need. Now, bring it towards when you do have that information, or when you do want to be more attentive to your contacts, your customers, your prospects. What should you do? How should you handle that, Franz?
Yeah, the webinar is titled Foundational Workflows. And my argument here is that understanding something as core as contacts on your telephone or like a mobile devices, that lies at the foundation of a lot of workflows that come out of it. And there's just a lot of confusion. It used to be very simple back in the old days. Your contacts were stored on a SIM card. You just carry it around from phone to phone. That's no longer the case. You actually store contacts in a cloud. It's a bit of a technical piece here, but it's actually relatively simple, and it's important to make this work. So your contacts are stored inside a cloud. Android phones are very transparent into this. You store them into G Suite. iPhones, not so much. There's a setting which I'm sure a lot of iPhone users don't touch at all. I've shown a screenshot there. It's in settings, contacts. It's the default account setting. I bet it is set to iCloud with a lot of people. I personally use iCloud for a lot of things, but I don't use it for contacts. Because if your business apps revolve around G Suite, Google Apps, or Outlook, you should consider swapping iCloud there for Outlook or G Suite. Because then you only have one place, one easy place that your contacts will be stored in. Suddenly, Gmail or Outlook, it'll become your personal CRM, and that's a pretty cool outcome. It's also going to be easier to clean up duplicate contacts or like align the contacts data to the rest of your business. It needs to be clean because when you want to take your own contact sphere and plug that into your business apps, yeah, it just won't work if that data is not aligned. And yeah, I can't help but plug PieSync here, which gives you that two-way contact sync to plug it into a CRM, plug your own data into a CRM or in an app like Front. And the benefits of that just flow out of it. It's the reason why a phone book exists, right? If you have a mobile app of your CRM even, that is not ideal. You really need those contacts in the native phone book of an iPhone or an Android. If you say, hey Siri, or okay Google, call Steve Hackney with Front, that doesn't work if you don't have Steve in your phone book. The bottom image there is actually a rule that I've grabbed out of PieSync. It just straight up pushes a Facebook lead into my phone, and it will add the source to their name. So when that person calls me, I'm immediately able to greet them by their name, even if I've never met them before. Now, this principle, I actually want to apply it to the next foundational workflow here. It's really to get your company phone book in check.
And that is personalizing your communication.
Exactly. Take that same idea and just extend it to the company where you'll be on a shared voice over IP system like AirCall, RingCentral, to name a few. It's a phone system that everyone has access to. And those systems need to carry that up-to-date contact data, just like your personal phone should. Recognizing who is calling, like caller ID, it allows the right person in the organization to pick up the phone immediately. So you minimize those ugly transfers from internal transfers of the customer when they call. And I think it's an obvious differentiator, but it's an overlooked differentiator for any business today. It's customer service. And you can really excel on customer service through personalized communication. as simple as greeting your customer as they call in. I think it's mind-boggling that businesses, large and small, they have the technology today to be able to pick up the phone and say from the bat, "Hello, Mr. Hackney, how can I help you?" But they don't do it. It's "Hello, Business X, how can I help you?" On the slide, I'm showing an example here of PieSync, which, as if you set that up, as the phone rings, not only will it show immediately to anybody that Steve's calling, but also with it the fact that he's a VIP customer, because we've labeled him as a VIP customer in front. And if this is about calls, right? But even if you're just processing emails, the same principle applies there too, because then it's asynchronous communication, as Steve mentioned. And that gives you even more time to prepare the data. And because that can help us reduce Swivel Chair, which is a term that Steve taught me. I think that's the next workflow.
Yeah, I think this stuff is really cool because just the idea of reaching out your contacts from iCloud to something else where all that data is consistent across your platforms. It sounds like such a small thing, but it's really important. I think at least our sales team, for example, here who are taking a lot of a lot of calls on the go with their cell phone, being able to know if their lead is contacting them or if a VIP customer is contacting them and having that contextual information at their fingertips anywhere and everywhere. I think it's really awesome. This point is, like I said, it seems so simple, but it has so much power. So thank you so much for that. And as you mentioned, Franz, the swivel chair analogy that Steve is going to go into in a second. So this is number 5, less swivel chair and more standing desk. Steve, you want to take it away?
Great, yeah. So I tend to get a lot done when I'm at a standing desk. I don't know why physiologically that's the best for me, but I certainly get less done if I'm swiveling between applications, and that's the point here. The reason why I might swivel between my email client and my CRM and my project management application is because I want to provide good customer service. And I know that in order to answer this email, I have to know who I'm talking to. I have to know what they're doing and what we're doing for them, what products they purchased, any number of things allow me to incorporate some personalization to my communication and allow the customer to know they're not a ticket in a ticketing system. I am truly responding to them in a way that is personalized. However, this ideal state to really incorporate your systems and knowledge of a customer creates a lot of friction in the communication process because I have to jump from one application to another. And so what we can do with technologies like Front and PieSync is bring all of that information that you need to see the customer, see relevant information about the customer, respond with a personalized tone and message into one view. And so this is what we would call kind of a 360 view of the customer. And you can see in the screenshot here that we're sharing, we've selected an email in Front, and we can see the content of the email as you would in a standard email client. But then on the right of that, we've used a Front functionality called the contact details to display customized information that pertains to me and my job that will help me respond both efficiently and effectively to the customer without jumping between systems. And there's there's a terminology that we use in software called application fatigue, which is really like this process of me having to disperse my work across these various applications and just the fatigue that goes from context switching back and forth. And with PieSync and Front, as you can see in this screenshot, I can get access to all of the information without changing context. It's relevant to the thing I've clicked on. I can even update the information in this contacts list here and have it update back to my CRM in the case that I need to manage a workflow in the other direction.
Yeah, and it's just so important. And this, I mean, I don't want to overtly plug PieSync too much and actually overtly plug Front, but this is a principle that applies to any system, right? In a CRM, you could just as well set up like a contact sheet like that, pulling information out of front and update it right there. So it really goes both ways. I really like this idea, and application fatigue. I've suffered it many times. I really like that term. It rings so true.
Yeah, I think that's something that we all deal with every day, and it's kind of somewhat similar to the shoulder tapping of either you're getting interrupted from one app or you're just moving from one to the other, and I think that's when you really lose productivity. That's when you really lose focus. I think these workflows that the two of you are talking about are really designed to help avoid that and designed to help us be a little bit more productive and give us more context. And I think that these themes are so crucial. I'm glad that we're continuing to talk about them.
Mm-hmm.
All right, number 6, protecting the subtle art of the handoff. Steve, want to go for it with this one?
Yeah, I'll take the first pass at this one. Although I think it definitely applies to PieSync as well. So the subtle art of the handoff. The idea here is that when you're a new business owner starting out your business, you're forced to wear a lot of hats. And if you're now at the stage where you're a high growth company, you're very good at those tasks and quite good at being able to do many things efficiently. However, there's a physical limit to the amount that you can do all of these things for all of these different processes. And so at Front, we encourage the use of kind of the handoff as a way to pass off ownership of key things while maintaining accountability. So if you're lucky enough to be at a phase of your business where you're a high growth company, then you likely have invested in the people around you and have brought in generals and people that you trust to be delegate owners of various aspects of the business. And so it's kind of a muscle to be able to trust and hand off these things to others while not micromanaging. But it's definitely one of the keys that makes businesses continue to scale and be successful is knowing when to let go and allow others to take control. So in the context of Front, if I'm working through my email queue, for example, there's a lot of emails in there that I need to reply to, but maybe there are team members on my staff that can help me reply. And so we have other webinars that we've gone through where we can talk about how our CEO manages the queue with her various generals, and she can maintain kind of a knowledge of who's owning what while not having to own everything herself. So something to keep in mind. I don't know, Franz. I did my point was more around just like the philosophy of trusting those around you and enabling those to succeed. But I think you have some points here about just like how that overlaps with a view of technology. Can you expand a little bit on that?
Yeah. So of course you're covering the use case of Front here, which is about incoming conversations, handing those off. I think also in the broader context of how we've seen technology evolve, especially here at PieSync, where we integrate all kinds of apps. There's already 160 apps, boom, that we integrate with one another. The trend clearly goes towards more niche software. If we just look at CRMs, you've got real estate CRM specifically for legal practices. There's like verticals that get their own CRM, but also different departments get their own little workspace or workflow software. The CEO of PieSync just confirmed me that he's felt the need, especially whilst we were growing so fast, whenever he feels he needs to get some stuff off his plate, he would investigate the expense of buying into separate software to enable another colleague. Sometimes, your software or your business scales that fast that your software doesn't fit anymore. And so our office manager just the other day, has now started using office management software. She's now happy to be very autonomous in working in her own little workspace. So we found that we had to take those measures. Sometimes you have to give people their own little workspace environment to set up their own workflows.
Great point.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great point. And I think I like the comparison of the tactical versus the more broader thing that you had, Franz.
Mm.
I think some of the other takeaways that I see this is just being on the demand gen team, for example, here at front, or just marketing in general, and when you're handing off leads to sales, and when sales is handing off leads to or accounts to customer success. I think being able to have the right workflows in place, being able to use the tools that we have and automate, whatever it may be, right? The takeaways here are auto signing, auto tagging messages. These are so crucial for my day to day, where I don't have to think twice about when I need to hand something over. I can build the rule in place. I could tag it. I could then sort by using those tags, and I could create, other sort of collaborative tools such as like shared drafts and canned responses, so that we can move quickly, but it's, you know, still be personalized. We want to automate, but we don't want to be robotic. We want to be personalized, and so I think being able to do that efficiently when you're dealing with such a high volume is so crucial, and having the right tools and the workflows in place like these that you mentioned. Make such a smooth handoff between one team to the next. And I think that's really when you see like a really beautiful machine that is your company being able to grow really successfully. So now number 7, knowing your customer. And I think this obviously is a theme amongst many teams and departments and people in general. And I think this really ties together all the points that we today. So, Steve, I think you can take this off. Feel free to go ahead.
Yeah. Actually, I think Franz, you had a couple points you wanted to make first, and then I can wrap it up with the final slide there.
Yeah, it's actually about that screenshot. We showed that screenshot earlier with the full view, the full 360-degree view. Here it's just zooming in on the customer data attributes. Now those data attributes, they sort of came out of the CRM and they were being pulled into front. But the beauty of an integration, of a good backend integration, is that there is an edit button inside front, and you could actually, edit that data right there, because it's unifying the underlying data. It's not just passive data, it's live data. And what that enables you to do is make changes, but also to fill out the blanks, because there will be blanks, and you can fill out those blanks. That's a sweet idea, which opens doors to a lot of workflows. Now, in this case, we already had a phone number there for Jonas. But what if we didn't? Imagine the phone number could actually be very well present in the email signature that you're looking at, and you don't see the phone number filled out as an actual phone attribute. Well, in that case, you just copy paste it and drop it there in front. It will be truly rewarding to do so, because it will flow into those other systems. You are completing the customer persona for your business, and that's critical and foundational for a lot of workflows that you will be setting up. Steve's going to explain some workflows like that, and that's a simple thing, right? Take a phone number, enrich the contact. But I don't see this happening enough, and I understand why, because without proper backend integration, there's just not too much of a payoff, right? Because the system is lying not connected with the other systems. You just be adding a phone number in front, but you're not adding a phone number to that same customer in your CRM or in another tool that is being used in the business. And you can be making a change like in marking somebody as a VIP. I think in front you can mark somebody as a VIP, and that could lead to setting up other workflows in front. Steve, you probably have some examples of that.
Yeah, exactly. Just to really bring it full circle, we started out talking about a few workflows that encouraged you to prioritize your activities, and even among that, prioritize the things that are related to your customer. Trust people around you to help you address those customers effectively. Use data that you have available to make those interactions most efficient. And the final kind of panacea for this is to do all of those things that we discussed to provide that customer experience, but build workflows and logic into your customer experience management so that you can do so scalably. And an example that we often give is to have customers email into a centralized inbox, but knowing the email address of the person that sent the request in, compare that against our knowledge of the customer and determine, is this customer one of our VIPs, one of the people that we really, above all else, want to make sure is happy and well supported. And so with front and PieSync synchronizing this data from your CRM to front, you can build workflows that will automatically escalate something that comes in from a VIP if it's not addressed within 20 minutes. And all of this happens behind the scenes so that the customer emails in, and inevitably you always email back within the hour or within a few minutes. And those subtle things that you can do to create a very positive customer experience are those things that are a competitive differentiator between your high growing business and the incumbent, and the competitors are critical to maintaining that high growth. And
So
so
what would happen if the SLA is about to be breached? Would I be shoulder tapped, or how would that? What would happen there?
So what we would do is, dependent on if you wanted to be shoulder tapped, we can actually do that. And there are scenarios where that might make sense if that's decided as a company as an important thing. Some of our SLAs for our most important customers, where there's an actual financial impact if they don't respond in a certain point in time, they'll notify all of the agents with 1 hour to spare. They'll notify the agent's manager with a half hour to spare, and then they'll send all notifications to all communication channels 15 minutes before, just to have like a series of triage events that happen to ensure that you, above all else, meet your SLA. But in order to do that, you have to know what your SLA is, you have to know who sent the email in, and you have to know your customer.
Yeah, if the foundational contact data is not there, that SLA workflow will just not work to begin with. There's this thing where the more urgent the email seems, and the most like a very important or problem that may come in, that will actually flip a business upside down, and a lot of stakeholders will have to be looking at that email, and there's lots of back and forth that will start originating in the business as to how will we handle this customer inquiry, which is like, it's a bit of a paradox as well. Like you risk of breaching your SLA by you just not knowing how to answer. So you need a collaborative platform to craft your response.
Yeah, I also think the tools and the workflows you put in place like this help you create somewhat of like a preventative plan. So once you have these things in place, once you have the notifications that something's wrong or you need to address something quickly, I think it basically forces you to create that sort of process that when so-and-so happens, you breach your SLA or you get a SLA warning, this is how you need to act, this is how your team needs to react. These are, maybe that you have CAN responses in place, or you have tags to notify or rules to notify certain people. And then you don't have any sort of panic situations. The main thing we're all trying to do. And I think, to your point, Frans, as well, making sure that data is clean. I remember from a previous life of manually copying those phone numbers from the signature and putting it into contact directory. Not necessarily even having that contact directory synced with other directories in other tools. And so it's nice that you can have the data synced and a tool that actually enriches this information automatically. I think that's pretty neat right there.
Cool.
Great. So we are done with our seven workflows. Thank you, Steve. That was really awesome. A lot of great learning from there. For the attendees, feel free to ask any questions. We have one to go off right now that I'm going to ask you. This is for both of you. So we had seven. What would be your number? Steve, Franz, you can each covered seven. What would be the ninth foundational workflow that you would have added in here if you could?
Ooh, wow. So you were breaking up a bit. Are you saying what would be the 8th or 9th?
Yes, yeah. So what did you just not get to add in here that you wish you could because it was we went with seven? What would be those extra ones that you think would be foundational for high growth businesses? Maybe related to what we've already talked about, or maybe just something brand new.
Well, I think the idea of applications as being something is hitting home for me. It really feels close to my heart. I can't imagine the number of applications that are currently living like around. And as a business, it's fine to have a lot of applications to run your business, but I think when you look at the individual, you always have to strive for that person, that colleague, that they aren't just working with like a lot. There's a bit of an echo, by the way. That's me.
Steve, did you have one that you wanted to add?
Yeah, I think the one that I would add, if this was the 8th and 9th and probably 10th, is every different communication channel that you can centralize into one view. That's a massive efficiency gain. So if I'm not having to go answer some customer inquiries via my phone and others via my Facebook page and others via my email client, that having a single interface to address all customer communications is really nice. And the other workflows are that the more that we can get people into that collaborative space to help me answer those questions effectively and efficiently, that is not something we covered, but the collaborative aspects of working together, not just syncing data from our internal systems, but using the knowledge workers around me to create the best customer experience. I would say that would be the other one or two that I would add.
We have another question from example of a customer experience workflow. Giving customers a unique.
I'm sorry, it was breaking up a little bit, Vishal.
The question was from Tamar. Can you give me another example of a customer experience workflow?
Okay,
I'm getting some.
The customer experience workflow that we. Yeah. The customer experience workflow that we see a lot of customers using is one where they'll create a vanity email address or set of contacts for VIP customers to use specifically. And so they'll create a shared inbox for each VIP customer. So it might be customer 1 at company.com, customer 2 at company.com, and set up a team of people that are responsible for addressing any incoming messages to that channel. This allows for the customer to really easily get in touch with people without worrying about who is the responsible party, and allows for the team to delegate, maintain accountability, and maintain an efficient response process in a collaborative way.
I like that.
I think Vishal might be muted. I wasn't
Can you
able to
hear me
hear
now,
that. Can
guys?
you try? Yeah, it's coming across a
Okay.
little garbled though. So for me at least.
Yeah, I've been noticing that too. Fortunately, that was our last question. We just had one more from Jason Stanley. He was just going to be recording the article. He wanted to share it with some of his coworkers, and he appreciates the insights from Steve and Frans. Thank you, Jason. So yes, we're going to make this recording available, also a summary blog post to everyone that attended and didn't get a chance to attend. And yeah, and please, if you do have any more questions after this, you can email us at success@frontapp.com. If it's for anyone specifically or just a general question, we'll definitely be able to get back to you. Tamar says, thank you, by the way, Steve. Thank you, Tamar, for asking that question. And thank you, everybody, for attending today. Hopefully this was helpful and interesting. Like I said, the recording will be going out, and if you do have questions, you can still let us know, and you can connect with us via email or online. Our LinkedIn is also available, so please connect with us, email us. We're friends, and we really appreciate you being here today. And thank you so much, and thank you, Frans, and thank you, Steve, for your insights.
You're welcome. Have a great day.
Have a
My
great
pleasure.
day.